Alrighty, what is going on, everybody? Here we are once again for another Full Press Saints episode. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at SaintsFPC. Alec in here today. Dayton is out. He'll be back Thursday when we get another offseason preview episode going on. But today, guys, I'm joined by a very special guest. He's a local legend here in the DFW area, if you will. Worked at The Fan, The Ticket, even ESPN Radio. He now works at 97.1 The Eagle. He hosts the draft podcast over at DallasCowboys.com, as well as working for The Athletic, doing all great things there. The one, the only KT Turner. Follow on Twitter at KT Fun Tweets. Kevin, thank you for being here today, sir. It's an honor truly to be doing this with you. And yeah, thank you for taking time to doing this with me.
No, I'm happy to do it. As you know, I like talking all things draft and things like that. And it's always fun to I've been covering the Cowboys for so long. It's always fun when we start talking about other teams as well.
Yeah, because I believe, if I'm correct, you're a Packer fan. Am I right?
I sure am.
Yep.
It's great, but I feel like a Cowboys fan almost just because of when you're covering a team, no matter what anyone in the journalism world tells you, there's a part of you that's going, man, I want them to win. So it's like I'm a Packers fan, but I probably have more invested in the Cowboys at this point.
Yeah, it's just like, as we say here in UNT in Denton, Texas, we went to the same college. Or KT graduate, I'm still going. But, we all root for the mean green at the end of the day. But just never really turns out that well, unfortunately. So, let's get right to all the stuff today, man. So, obviously, the Saints lose Aaron Glenn, former Cowboy, former Aggie standout, to the Detroit Lions. He joins Dan Campbell, another former Cowboy, former Saint, former Aggie, to be his defensive coordinator up there in Detroit. And I kind of figured, based on from what I heard, he got the interview to be the head coach for the Jets before they also went with Robert Saleh. So I figured if Dan Campbell wants to pick anybody to go with them to be DC, it's going to be Aaron Glenn. Ultimately, that's what happened. First thing that came to my mind was, okay, Kris Richard, I know he sat out a year for coach. He sat out this past season. He's the guy I would want to bring in ideally. And Lord behold, last week Rappaport came out with the tweets. Kris Richard's heading to New Orleans, coach of secondary, so I kind of think perfect. So, Kevin, I know you work with the Cowboys relatively closely through some of your time. I know you talk to players and all that kind of stuff, and you were there when Kris Richard was with the team. So I'm just kind of curious, as what can the Saints fans expect from a guy like Kris Richard, and what does he bring to what I consider a pretty talented Saints secondary?
Yeah, I think the first thing that's going to come to mind that will be very evident is his energy, his passion. I mean, this is without I don't want to use a cliche or anything, but he is a coach's coach. Like, he is going to be one of those guys when you hear him interview, you go, "Wow, that guy's just." I feel like you're listening to a preacher preach. I mean, he is very energetic guy, but he is a very hard coach. I mean, he's a coach where you do need to have a stable, defensive locker room who can be able to handle it, because he is going to be a guy who, kind of rides people, especially the secondary. So it'll be interesting to see how he meshes with Marshawn Lattimore. He gets a lot of credit for his time in Seattle, helping form the Legion of Boom. But I think there's a lot of coaches who could have helped form the Legion of Boom, if they were there. So, my thoughts on Kris Richard are very mixed at this point, because even when he was in Dallas, I had questions about, why did Seattle not want him around anymore? And that kind of happened, and I think at some point Dallas, had to move on. You have a coaching change and things like that. But to me, I do think he's the type of guy who might not rub everyone the right way, not because of his, who he is as a person, just the way he coaches is so intense. And, that if that's something that you feel like you need, then that's good. Maybe that is something you need, even with someone like a leader like Drew Brees leaving and things like that, and losing Aaron Glenn, who I think was, highly thought of and things like that. Maybe you feel like here's another ex-player, who's got skins on the wall and things like that. So I think it's a good hiring, but I can't say that it went well in Dallas, and I also don't think it was, all his fault either that it didn't go well in Dallas. So I would rather have Aaron Glenn as my defensive coordinator. I think every Saints fan probably would, I would imagine. But I think there's a good chance too. Kris Richard's young as well, and especially, a guy who took a year off and things like that. And, maybe he's trying or I don't think he'll change his approach to coaching and things like that. Like, that's always going to be the same. But we're talking about a guy, I don't know if you're asking the guy to come in and make this team, top 5 in every category in defense. I think that's a different expectation. And it's already a good defense. We know, what they do with Trey Hendrickson, what they do with Marcus Williams, to me, is very key. I mean, the NFL, every team in the NFL is looking for a free safety who can go make plays on the ball. And there's not that many of them off the top of your head anymore. Who are the guys? Who are the safeties who are going to get a ton of interceptions? A lot of the cornerbacks are being your big interception guy. You look at Marcus Williams, he's a guy who's got double-digit interceptions through 4 years. I think Marcus Williams is a guy the Saints really need to try to keep around. But that's where, the draft comes in and things like that. And I know Marcus Williams is more famous in New Orleans for other things than, going and getting 13 interceptions in 4 years. But he's a really excellent player, that a player that'd be highly coveted on the free agent market. So, there's a lot the Saints have to figure out on defense first before I kind of start going, all right, now how do I think about Kris Richard? It's like, let's figure out what they can do with the defense first. Already a solid defense in my eyes as well. Yeah,
I agree. I think to me, Marcus Williams has to be the top priority as far as, but besides Jameis being the quarterback, I'm all for Jameis. Yeah. But he's got to be top priority this offseason, I think, to see, and I've been a pro Marcus Williams guy ever since Minnesota. Like, the kid has bounced back and really showed, maturity and resilience that I've never seen from a young guy to have what happened to him and then to be nationally, exposed, made fun of, poked it on social media, whatever you want to say. The kid has really bounced back, and I'm all for Marcus Williams. So I love that. So Kris Richard, right, took a year off, like Mike McCarthy, right? Or is that too soon to talk about?
No, we can always talk about it. I love talking about McCarthy. Like, Cowboys fans kind of think I hate Mike McCarthy. I don't hate Mike McCarthy at all. I just don't think you should I'm not a big believer in just being like, oh, here's the first guy. Okay, let's give him a job. Hey, we can interview other guys. Like, right. That's kind of where I'm at. So, to me, I don't know if Richard had trouble finding a job or if he wanted to sit out for COVID reasons or just wanted to get a year away. I don't know those types of things, but, look, this is a really good job for him and a chance to stake his claim. And he could be, this is a guy who a couple years ago, before the Cowboys, they had a year where they missed the playoffs, but quite frankly, they should have made it. This guy was being talked about as a guy who would get head coaching interviews. Mm-hmm. And, it's a whole other topic. And I think some teams might see him as, there's an African-American guy we can bring in for an interview and then fulfill the Rooney rule, and move on from there. That's terrible, but that's
a whole different thing, but
that's sucks. A whole, yeah. I don't want to go down that road here today, but I think he's a guy who is still mostly highly thought of in the NFL. Again, it has always been odd to me though, why didn't Seattle want him around anymore? And maybe I'm wording that too harshly. Why did Seattle not retain him? If he had, and why was he available to go to Dallas? And then all of a sudden, why weren't they able to keep him? Because Dallas can keep pretty much anyone they want to keep. They pay their coaches pretty well. So those things are always there for me. So I'm not trying to scare away Saints fans. I'm just saying, there's a lot to dive into with him.
Yeah, I agree. I think the two names right off the top of my head when you mentioned why Seattle didn't want to bring it back, there was Gus Bradley, who was the DC the first year, 2012, I believe, and then it was Dan Quinn after that, if I'm right. My math could be off. So really quick with Kris Richard, right? Kind of a two-parter here. One, you mentioned he's kind of like that a coach's coach type guy, so I kind of want to know, how do you think he messes with Sean Payton, who I think is kind of the same kind of coach in that way? And two, obviously the Legion of Boom, as we mentioned, and then even in Dallas, it looked like he was getting something out of the young corners they had when he was there. So I'm kind of wondering, what do you think he can do for a guy like Marshawn Lattimore, who I think is on that rise to be a top 3? I'd say he's borderline top 5 right now, but what do you think he could do to really help Lattimore out and maybe take that next step to be a legit shutdown corner in the NFL?
I think if Marshawn Lattimore is the type of guy, and I truly don't know this, if he's the type of guy who is able to handle some real tough love, some tough coaching and things like that, I think Marshawn Lattimore absolutely takes the next step. And I gotta be honest, I don't know what the next step is for Marshawn Lattimore. I think Marshawn Lattimore is amazing. So, I don't know what the next step is, but like, I do think there's something that can be, an improvement could happen. And it's hard to improve when you're already one of the best, right? But that's the thing. It's little things, technique, and it's the day in, day out. I mean, Kris Richard just loves the routine of getting up and going to practice and let's do it again and get better. I mean, he is that guy. So I think that's something. I know it all sounds generic, but all that crap matters in football, you know?
Right.
Like it truly does. It sounds weird when you talk about it. It's like, oh, what do you know, man? But I was like, no, seriously, like they're looking for guys who are like excited to go to practice every day, and engaging in the classroom settings. And which is basically what an NFL player is. You know, they're almost like a student of the game. They're in a classroom all day when they're not at practice, you know? So like those types of things, I think you're going to really, really love Kris Richard. If Marshawn Lattimore can handle that constant grind. And I think he can because, most players can.
Yeah. So they're good stuff, dude. I'm loving this so far. So let's talk about the Saints draft status, right? You know, 4 straight years. They've been 12 wins or better, 4 straight playoff exits. It's been rough for us over here these last 4 years. So they're picking 28th this year, right? A lot of these mock drafts have the Saints because to me, there's some holes on this roster, but I think a lot of it can be addressed as far as re-signing guys or addressing it with some low budget free agents in the offseason. But of course, the draft is always fun to talk about. I know you are one of the best minds. So I kind of want to pick your brain here about what the Saints could do at 28. Maybe receiver could be in need. I think linebacker could be a big one, especially if Anzalone leaves in free agency. Maybe interior offensive line. So kind of what do you think the Saints should do? Are there any players in your mind that could be there at 28?
Yeah, it's interesting. The Saints are in that position that so many teams are. You see these teams picking in this area every single year. You see Green Bay and Baltimore and even New England, with the exception of last year. But like these teams that pick in the late 20s all the time, and they have, tight decisions to make because their quarterback makes good money and everyone else, you got to try to piece it together from there. And that's okay. But it creates a need for consistency when it's drafting. You look at the Saints' history. They haven't been scared to say, you know what, we need to get offensive line. We need to trade up as they traded up to get Marcus Davenport, a few years ago. I know a lot of people didn't love that deal at the time.
His nickname at Saints Twitter is 2 First because
oh no.
Yeah, he's already got the nickname status, which isn't a good thing. But Saints Twitter calls him 2 First.
I love what they did with an aging Drew Brees of getting guys like Ramchick and getting the A&M centers,
McCoy.
in my head. Eric McCoy, and then and Cesar Ruiz even, and like building that offensive lineup allows you to go do a lot of other things, and I really like that. I look at how they can save money. I've already told you that I'm a proponent of paying Marcus Williams and maybe taking a hit somewhere else. So maybe Trey Hendrickson leaves.
Yep.
You can cut Janoris Jenkins and save money. Yep. And I think I would go ahead and move on from the Jackrabbit. So, I'm looking secondary. I think this team has proven with Lattimore and with Marcus, if they pay Marcus Williams, they decided to do that, add another corner to that, and then you've already become a team that's going to be tough to throw against. So I'm a big proponent of looking at cornerback. Now, where we're going to be talking about cornerback in the late first round, for me, I'm just going off my board right now. To me, you have 2 upper tier guys, Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech, Patrick Surtain from Alabama. Those guys are top 10 guys. Those guys aren't going to get there. J.C. Horn from South Carolina is an interesting player, but I don't think he's going to be there. Talking at 28, you might have to move up to go get him. That is the son of Joe Horn, though.
Stud.
Saints fans, other Saints fans are probably in love with and know a lot about. Where I'm looking right there, if I'm going cornerback in that position, I'm a big Aaron Robinson fan. He's a cornerback from Central Florida, has the ability to play inside or outside. He's my 4th cornerback. But I'll tell you, it does get kind of crowded there with kind of what do you like? Like Aaron Robinson is 5'11", has shown that he can play outside, but played a lot of slot at Central Florida. So like you're asking a guy, okay, is he going to be able to do? I think you can go play outside, but don't want to be taking any quote I thinks in the first round, right?
Right.
Unless you're the Saints and you want to take Marcus Davenport, but like Asante Samuel. And everyone, I think, remembers his father, Asante Samuel. Asante Samuel is a little guy from Florida State, excellent player, size a bit of a problem at times, but he can move. He's in position to make plays. He's an aggressive player, and he's all around the football, but he's another slot guy. Eric Stokes is, well, I'll throw Tyson Campbell in there as well. My two Georgia corners, there are a couple guys who can play outside and have proven they can play outside. Stokes is more your traditional 6-foot build. Tyson Campbell's a little longer, more freaky athletic, but I don't really love his feel. But I do think the upside there and how he reacts and things like that, I think those will all improve. And I think working with a guy like Kris Richard, I think Kris Richard's going to love those guys who have length. I think he's going to like those things. So there's a lot of options I'm giving you there. At 28, you're drafting a second round player.
Yep.
Most NFL teams on their board are going to have 15 to 20 first round grades. So you're drafting a second round caliber player at 28. So unless they want to move up and go get JC Horn or something like that. Now, if let's say they went the route of, let's say we'll sign, they spend their money in a different way than maybe I laid out. Let's say they let Marcus Williams walk. The two safeties I would throw out there are Richie Grant of Central Florida. And if you need to know more about him, go watch his performance at the Senior Bowl a couple weeks ago. All over the field, making plays, has the range. I mean, that's your free safety, ball hawking type of guy. And the other one's Trevon Moehrig. Moehrig is probably the most accomplished safety in this draft from a statistical standpoint, from a production standpoint, playing at TCU. Showed that he could come up and stop the run a little bit as well, but he is a free safety at heart. Those are your two names, and 28 is a pretty good spot for those guys. So if safety was going to be the direction that they went, I think that's your play. So I know I was kind of long-winded there, but if you're talking cornerback and safety, there's a lot of options at cornerback. At safety, there's not, and that's where I lean towards. Plus, I'm a Marcus Williams fan. That's where I lean towards kind of tying a little bit of money into Marcus Williams, as I believe in investing in the safety position, unlike the Dallas Cowboys, who do not believe in that.
It's really funny, Kevin, because about 3 weeks ago, we talked to Chris Arnold. He came on our radio show talking about the Cowboys. And he said the exact same thing you did. The Cowboys do not pay or draft secondary. I don't know what it is about them. So really quick, I'll get one Cowboy kind of what's your opinion on one Cowboy free agent? Someone I personally wouldn't mind seeing in a Saints uniform if they were to let Jack Rabbit go. Maybe like on a 1-year prove it kind of deal. You could say, I'll give you a hint. You could say this guy plays with a chip on his shoulder.
Yes, Cheeto, yeah.
Yeah. What's your feeling on Cheeto?
I don't know. I mean, I truly do not know how Cheeto and Kris Richard meshed. So that's my question there. Did they, because Cheetos has been hurt. I was really frustrated, and Cheeto's a great dude, by the way. But my feeling on Cheeto is I was really frustrated that in 2020 he was unable to kind of take a step forward in what was essentially a contract year for him.
Yep.
And I'll say the same for Jordan Lewis, who was drafted in the 3rd round of that 2017 draft. That was the same thing. Like two guys who in a contract year just weren't able to constantly be on the field and show out and prove that they, deserve a starter's, compensation in the NFL. And I say this, and it pains me to say it because I love both of those guys. Those guys are awesome. They've been on our radio show a million times. And I just wonder, how well they meshed with Kris Richard. And I just don't know. I don't know. Kris Richard may be huge fans of those guys, so that maybe there's something there. And I would say the same thing about Xavier Woods as well at safety, who is a free agent as well for the Cowboys. These are all guys from the 2017 draft Cowboys, I think, are probably going to move on from these guys. Maybe Xavier Woods stays. Like, these are all getting names who could be on the Saints' radar if Kris Richard has a higher review for him. So definitely names to know for Saints fans, for sure.
Yeah, I have Cheeto as my number 3 corner. I do a weekly, weekly free agent drop of top 5 guys at each position. Yeah. Cheeto is my number 3 corner going into the offseason for guys I would like to see. So we'll check it out. We'll see what happens. So Kevin, before we sign off here today, man, as we know in sports talk, there is always the debate of, the age-old question, who is the GOAT, right? Well, we know Tom Brady is the GOAT. Saints fans, I know you don't want to hear that, but look, there's no denying what that guy just did this season. I'm not going to deny that. So having said that, I know you're a guy who gets a lot of access to film and, gets really the point of view that, myself and, fans really don't get to see, the tape in the film room and, all the different angles and things that, you've noticed about draftees. So I kind of want to ask you about Drew Brees and kind of get your opinion on what makes Brees so great and just different from any other average NFL quarterback.
Well, I mean, for Drew Brees, you're talking about a guy. There's a few traits that are a little different. I think back in the day too, people forget that he was a pretty mobile guy. You know, early in his career, mainly a lot of that was not in the Saints uniform, but he could run a little bit. But I think that always stands out to me. Number one, full on command, no question at all who runs the show. Like that is something you see with all of these alpha dog, type of guys. They're running the show no matter what. So command one, accuracy, and over time we've seen the arm strength tail off to the point that it was at times kind of hard to watch. At times you're kind of going, man, we know the Saints aren't running 20-yard routes anymore.
It was rough, man. It was.
I was sitting there as a Packers fan, I was going, man, I really don't want to play the Bucs. I really would like to play the Saints because I know how to game plan the Saints, and somehow Tom Brady doesn't have a rag arm. So I don't know how, but somehow he does.
That TB12, that's what it is.
And I'll be honest, in terms of glimpses, the best quarterback I've ever seen is Aaron Rodgers. And now I'd say Patrick Mahomes in just terms of glimpses. There's nothing about Tom Brady's athletic ability that makes me go, well, he's better than all these. Even Brees is a better athlete than Tom Brady. And I really don't think there's any denying that. I think everyone would all agree with that.
Yep.
But there's little intangible things that totally matter for a quarterback position. I always go through when I'm looking at positions, what matters at what positions when I'm scouting guys. I need accuracy, and accuracy can always improve. I need pocket skills at quarterback. I need a guy who's comfortable with bodies moving around him, okay, with 300-pound dudes in his face or right behind you or whatever. I need you comfortable looking downfield and watching that safety or looking that safety off before delivering a post corner route, things like that. Arm talent, I think Drew Brees had some arm talent. Toughness is not a question, but more than anything, it's the recognition skills. And that's the big question Saints fans are going to have if indeed Jameis Winston is their quarterback. I am a Jameis Winston fan. I think give Jameis Winston a little bit of time to throw in Tampa Bay, and I think a lot of those mistakes he makes, they're still going to happen because you can't take the gunslinger out of the guy. That was always a bit of his DNA. But can Jameis read a football field? And I always thought he was pretty advanced at that at Florida State coming out. I had Jameis Winston graded higher than Mariota, and I know that's not saying much now, but at the time that was a hot debate, if you remember, in that draft.
Yep.
And the big difference was Jameis was snapping the ball, and he was dropping back to pass, and he was looking down the field. Meanwhile, Mariota would look at his wristband, the coach would give him a sign, and he would say, "Hut," and there was a predetermined read on every play. So there's a couple things with Jameis I'm looking for, and it's, just the continuing development of being able to read things down the field, keeping your eyes downfield, and B, how much can he show off in the RPO game? Because that's where everything's going. The game now is about tricking people underneath to have success over the top. And if you're freezing linebackers because you're faking a handoff to Kamara, well, that's going to be very helpful. And Brees is not a threat to run, and Jameson will not be confused as a speed racer or anything. But if he can at least run the ball twice a game, 3 times a game, and show that he's got it, he's not Taysom, obviously, or maybe you have some packages with Taysom and Jameson in the game at the same time. Those are little things that I think could really help that offense. And these are all things Sean Payton knows. So, I mean, I'm not saying anything. So I guess, I would tell you is he's number 4 all time. No, he's not. Dan Marino's going to be above him.
See,
Dan Marino was so damn good.
He was nasty. I never watched him play live, but dude, man, Marino would rip it. Like,
he was flinging it.
God.
Oh gosh, it's tough because I'm such a Favre fan. I mean, Drew Brees, I think you'd say overall is probably a better quarterback than Brett Favre. I think so. But man, you start era adjusting that. I don't know.
It's a great question.
I just don't know.
I think
it's tough, man. He's clearly top 10. How about that?
Yeah. I think in my non-biased opinion, on a day where I'm not getting sad about Drew Brees retiring, because that happens quite often around here, I'll just randomly go, man, he's really going to retire this year in about 2 weeks. So in a non-biased day, I have him 4th, right? I have him behind Brady, number 1, obviously. Montana 2. Dan Marino 3. And then Drew at 4. In my totally non-biased opinion. I take him over Peyton any day of the week. At the moment, I have him above Rodgers. But if Rodgers can keep playing like he is right now, I just really don't think there's no question, not denying how great he's going to be. So I have Brees at 4, confidently.
Yeah, I think that's yeah. You said confidently. You stick with it.
Yeah.
Like, and this business, as long as it's not like, hey, if you feel it and you mean it, just stick with it. Is what I would say.
As long as you can back
that's
it
my
up,
advice.
That's your opinion. That's
yeah.
That's what
Don't
makes
just
sports
do it
talk.
for clicks. Yeah, don't just do it for clicks. That's it's like have some dignity about it. Like a lot of people will go on TV and just shout an opinion that some guy might have written and handed to him or something, or some producer told them, hey, you should have this opinion. It says stick with what you believe, and go with it.
Yeah, that's the beauty about sports talk. We all have our own opinions. Kevin, before I let you go today, man, I know you got some fun projects going on outside of your show on the Eagles. So, and what all do you got going on? What can people check out KT Turner doing nowadays?
Well, this time of year, obviously the draft is happening. So the draft show on DallasCowboys.com. We do episodes every Tuesday and Thursday, and you can even go back and see past episodes. That's been a lot of fun to do. I'm on the Thursday batch with Dane Brugler of The Athletic and Jeff Cavanaugh from over at The Fan. I'm on About Them Cowboys podcast on The Athletic. We actually just put a new episode out today about Dak. Should Dak want to be in Dallas? What's the situation with his surgery and all kinds of stuff going on with Dak? We kind of get crazy. Had a lot of hypotheticals there. Obviously, my radio show 2 to 5 p.m. on 97.1 The Eagle. It's more of a comedy show, so if we have any hardcore sports guys, they may not want that. We do sports whenever we want to do sports, but we're allowed to kind of do what we want. So we don't really always do a ton of sports. We just kind of jack around. Like today, we did 30 bands and music artists that changed their name before they got big. So that was no one. Yeah, Coldplay was Starfish. I don't think you're and like
really.
Outkast was before they were Outkast. They were 2 Shades Deep, and let's see, Limp Bizkit. This may be shocking for you. I don't know. You can handle it. You went to UNT. Limp Bizkit. Their original name was Bloodfart. So and I didn't really like that. I didn't really like them. Finger 11 was a band, and their original name was the Rainbow Butt Monkeys. So I don't know. That's kind of what we do on my show. And then lastly, I know I'm promoting a lot of crap here. I did a show back in the fall, so the jokes won't be timely. But we're coming back for season 2 this year. I did a show called Sports and Such. My good friend Dina, the showrunner, and we just did a 22 to 25 minute show on YouTube. So if you just search Sports and Such or follow us online at Sports Such DFW, we had a bunch of funny episodes of local sports stories and jokes and interviews and game shows with people in the media and things like that.
Hey, awesome stuff,
So that's
Kevin.
a lot.
Awesome stuff, guys. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter at KT Fun Tweets. It's a great follow.
Thank you.
Very educational in today's social media world. Kevin, again, thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. I look forward to having you on again sometime, especially close to the draft. I'd love to get some more insight from you. And that's going to wrap it up here, guys. So we'll be back later this week with a offseason preview episode and all the chaos that's going to follow once Drew Brees officially retires. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at SaintsFPC, and we'll see you guys then.